So Invincible's back. We've talked about season 2 on Invincible about a year ago. It's been a little bit less than a year. Notably, Invincible took off a very, very sort of large amount of time in between seasons 1 and season 2, but they have shortened that gap, that year off, or those multiple years off by putting multiple seasons in production at a time. And so season 3 now arrives just a few short months after the conclusion of season 2, which was notably split into 2 parts, and we reviewed both parts on the show a little bit under a year ago. But now season 3 returns us with the characters, and it finds our main titular character sort of in a new space and a new place right now, sort of forming himself as a new emerging hero, but also with the addition of a couple of new characters that are very important. There will be a couple of spoiler things that we can address here in a little detail, but before we dive into that stuff, how are you feeling about these first 3 episodes that we've gotten with Invincible as it kicks off season 3?
I think these boys are cooking. I think they are cooking, man. I watched these first 3 episodes of Invincible and I said, we are so back. And I don't want to make it seem like, I actually think Invincible season 2 was good, but there was, of course, we just had issues in the release schedule. And I think the story wasn't everybody's favorite, but I knew it was like one of those seasons that was going to help set up other things. It was like, okay, cool. We about to help set up season 3. Man, I think it's paying off. I really do. I really, really like these first 3 episodes of Invincible. It's everything that I look for in Invincible. It's the jarring stuff, the stuff you don't expect to happen. Like, whoa, how the hell did we get here? It's trials and tribulations that Mark goes through. It's the brutality, the stuff that you see people get hit with, and it's the unexpected villains that pop up. It's just like, wow, all of that. They pretty much did everything I needed them to do in 3 episodes. So I'm like, damn, y'all got more? Like, this only seen 3 episodes. Like, I'm having a really good time with Invincible right now, man. Like it's off such a good start. I'm like, okay, y'all, if y'all keep this up, I'm about to be comparing. Honestly, I could be comparing season 1 to season 3. Like, it's that good of a start to me. So we'll have to see. I hope they can keep this energy. I really, really like it. But yeah, that's really it, man. I think they're cooking right now. They just got to stay this course. I'm having a blast.
Invincible season 3, it's off to a really good start. They came in hot with this season, and I was critical in some respects of certain aspects with season 2. Like you said, the release schedule, I thought, hindered the success of that season because splitting it into 2 4-part episodes or half seasons, I thought it was a mistake. I know they wanted to get the episodes to us as quickly as possible because the wait had already been a really long time, but looking back on it, I would have rather just have waited to get everything at once, especially considering the pacing of season 2. But now knowing season 3, it's going to be 8 episodes straight through, no breaks in between, and these 3 episodes kicking off this new season. It's really, really good stuff. What Invincible does really well, they continue to do really well here. The characters, and the relationships that we have with them outside of their superhero alter identities, like them just as people, and how we've grown these relationships with them, and we see the stuff that they go through, just the emotional turmoil that a lot of these characters go through. It's just always really, really well thought out, well written stuff. And the world that they continue to expound upon and the situations that we find characters in, it's always interesting. It's always unpredictable. Like the stuff that Mark finds himself in on a constant basis. It's like, what the fuck? Like, how are you doing this? And he's still sort of a new hero. He's still trying to find himself and get stronger and get faster and quicker and be smarter and more agile. Like, he's trying to be this great savior for the earth, but he's getting thrown all these different obstacles while trying to maintain a normal life. We know that's a trope that exists within a lot of superhero stories, but to see him navigate that and to know that they've just developed these characters so well, like you really care about him and what he goes through. Then, of course, what his mom goes through and everything that she's dealing with and all the fallout from the stuff that she's just been experiencing from Omni-Man and that relationship, and, of course, trying to raise Mark. And then, the big thing, the new family member, Oliver, this new young child who's a part of the fray now, Mark's younger brother, that he's now sort of overseeing and sort of raising on Earth, has added just a completely new dynamic that makes this just totally different than the first 2 seasons, but in the best ways possible, because they don't just retread the same territory that we've been down. It's like, oh, now this is like the hero and his sidekick. Like, this is a whole new thing that we get to explore. It's another trope within superhero stories, but we haven't seen Invincible do it yet. Now we get to see them play with that stuff, and I think that they're handling it all really, really well. And the one big thing about Invincible is, like, I'm always thinking about, like, well, where is this character at? We haven't seen them yet. Where are they at? What are they doing? people go absent for a while, but it's always with the good intention, because when they come
Yeah.
back and when they return, it's typically like a punch in the fucking face. It's like, oh my God, what have you been doing for the past like 10 years? Like some weird, wild shit. And
Yeah.
I'm waiting on that moment to happen, because there's been some
Hmm.
characters we haven't seen a ton of so far just yet. And when they return, I know it's gonna be crazy. So I'm very, very excited for the rest of season 3 as it unfolds. Quick spoilers. We won't get too
Yeah.
deep into it, but I want to talk about really one big thing, and that
Hmm.
is the new addition of Oliver, the relationship
Mm.
between Mark and Oliver. That's kind of been the big
Hmm.
focal point of these first 3 episodes. Now we know Oliver is Mark's younger brother, but it's only on the dad side. We know Omni Man went to this other planet, had a
Yep.
child, and Mark is able to bring this child back and now raise him on Earth. He has purple skin, all this weird stuff.
Hmm.
So he's an outcast, but he has powers. He does have the genetic power of Omni Man, and Oliver is eager to be a hero. He wants so badly to help. He wants so badly to be around. We've seen this before. Robin, Dick Grayson stories, all that stuff.
Yep.
It's been done. But they're doing it here with much more severe consequences, because Invincible doesn't hold anything back. What do you think about this relationship and seeing things unfold between Mark and Oliver, and even some of the parallels that we see between not only their characters,
Hmm.
but also just like the Omni-Man of it all, how that looms large over just like what that means for Oliver as he grows older, what it means for Mark, as he determines what type of hero he's going to be. How do you feel about this whole dynamic? And feel free to spoil anything, any big events that occurred, throughout these first 3 episodes.
Yeah, it's just such a complicated situation to be in. You kind of talk about, Mark is still a new hero trying to learn how the hell to navigate any of this. And the person that was supposed to teach him and his father ended up being not only murderous, but ends up leaving the planet completely. And in a lot of ways, of course, Cecil is there, but he's not a superhero. Cecil can't teach Mark the ropes. You know what I'm saying? He can send him on missions, but now it's like Mark is kind of left to himself. And so now when Oliver comes into the story, it's a baby teaching a baby. It's a kid teaching a kid in a lot of ways. Of course, Mark has experience under his belt now, but he still doesn't have the confidence or the power or stature that technically Omni Man had. You know what I mean? He's still not fitting. I think, or have the control that Omni Man had when he was performing as a good hero in that time. So it was interesting to see Mark have to navigate Oliver, and especially Oliver's rapid growing rate. His rapid, how the hell does he have powers already growing rate? Like, what is going on? How do I do this thing? Mark got him 10 years later in his age
Mm-hmm.
versus Oliver, who has him now. And the other reason it's complicated is because Oliver wants to be like his dad, kind of, but also wants to be like Mark.
Yeah.
But Oliver doesn't really know the atrocities or understand completely the atrocities that his dad committed completely. And so, how do you tell a child that you can't do that? It's just the craziest thing to me. Like him wanting to be Omni Boy, you're like, whoa, the world will shut you down. Like, do not,
Don't say
you
that fucking
cannot,
name
do
nowhere.
not say that. You Omni shouldn't even be in your. It shouldn't be in your dictionary. It should not be in your lexicon at all. Do not use Omni anything. And so it's such a cool issue and problem to have in the show, because you're like, man, how are we going to navigate this thing? And of course, when Oliver commits the atrocities of killing the, what are they called, the twins,
Oh yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
um the Maulers. Yeah, that's what they're called, the Maulers. It's just like, whoa. I was with Mark in that moment, because Mark goes back and tells Eve, like, it's that he did it and he didn't feel sorry about it. That's the scary part, right? It kind of reminds me of old boy and other
The
superhero TV
boys.
show, The Boys.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, the
Mm.
son and the boys. It's different because he doesn't necessarily want to be like a superhero, right? But he is also like, Homelander's my dad. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's still like a level of like, there are moments where you can see inside of him that he has no constraint because he has been taught not to have constraint. And so it's interesting to know what Omni Man has taught him versus what Mark and Mark's mom is trying to teach him. And yeah, it's just so complicated, but it's so cool to watch at the same time, because you want good for Oliver. You want him to be a good sidekick, but also it's just like a kid who has direction, but he can go off the hinges sometimes because he's growing up so fast. It's hard to control that thing that's growing up so fast. You know what I'm saying? It's like, dang, it's if you were aging a little slower, maybe I can teach you a little bit better. Maybe that would have never happened. But you were just 2 yesterday and today you're 10. How the hell was I supposed to teach you this in the in-between time? You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy, man. But I love this conflict that they have in the show, and it's become definitely, like you said, a pillar of what the show is now. It's so interesting.
I fear that the toothpaste is out of the tube. This boy is fucking lost. It's about to go downhill from here. Oliver, oh, y'all got to put the gas to him. I'm sorry. He is a problem. He's very much a problem. This kid doesn't really listen. You know, he flies throughout the house when Eves is like, "Don't fly in the house. Like, don't. Why are you flying in the house?" He's like, "No, I want to fly." You know, he's just doing this stuff, and then ultimately at the end of it, like you mentioned and pointed out, his indifference to killing the Maulers, like he's just like. It is what
They
it is.
had to
Yeah,
die.
you
They
know,
had
it
to
is,
go.
and that aligns with his father's thinking and how
Yeah.
just effortless and how thoughtless he was when it came to killing. Like, oh well, they're lesser than, they're not as good. You know, we're here to protect. If it requires killing, so be it. And we know Mark has much more heart and thought to that because of the humanity in Mark. You know, Mark grew up so much for such a long time, believing in humanity, being raised as just a normal boy, not discovering his powers until he was practically 18. You know, coming of age and becoming a man. And that's just a key stark difference between a young boy acquiring powers at such a young age and just not
Mm-hmm.
having a fully developed brain and thought process and mind and all sorts of things that just tap into the destructive nature and what that can look like. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, young Oliver is going to be a big problem, but this whole dynamic is it's super interesting because we've also seen Mark struggle with
Mm-hmm.
aggression and violence and maybe going too far and trying to pull back and still maintain humanity and show mercy and not cross that line. But he's had issues with that. And Omni Man has still been in his ear like, you can't move that way. Otherwise, you'll die. If you pull
Mm-hmm.
your punches, they will kill you. So he's also still grappling with that and hasn't still fully reconciled with what it's going to take to protect the earth, but then also still have a line that you try to establish to not go too far. And it's very murky waters in this world. Like it's not as clear cut as what we see out of Bruce Wayne, you know, who's
Yeah.
his code is just no killing. Bottom line,
Mm-hmm.
that is what it is. In this world, bodies fucking fly on a daily basis. And so
Yep.
how do you deal with that and how do you try to teach and impart those lessons on a young boy who is just rapidly growing and acquiring these powers? Man, this is good shit. This is just good shit.
It's good. Yeah.
I cannot wait to see how this continues to develop over the course of the season, especially if Omni Man does return and makes
Mm-hmm.
himself even more known in Oliver's life as we progress in the story. One other big thing I do want to talk about because they gave him a lot of attention, Cecil. Cecil,
Yes.
his
Wow.
character is being fleshed out quite a lot here. We got a lot of backstory with Cecil. We saw the origins of him and how he came into the position that he's in. We saw early interactions between him and Omni Man. We saw how he sort of developed his code and how he
Mm-hmm.
became who he is, but then conversely, how that's affected his relationship with Mark. Him and Mark, they're not good anymore. Mark is like, don't come near me. Don't come near my family. We're not working together anymore. I don't work for you. This is over. Also, on top of that, the Guardians have broken up. They're no longer a team.
Mm-hmm.
So now that is all in disarray. And Cecil's trying to keep all these pieces together in order to protect the Earth because he knows the threats that are out there. He knows
Yeah.
exactly what's at stake, but sometimes he's willing to put things in harm's way in order to protect the greater good. Like he's willing to
Mm-hmm.
bend that line and cross that line and do questionable things, Nick Fury-esque, in order to make sure that everybody's protected. What did you think about seeing that development with Cecil, seeing some of that backstory, seeing how he came to be who he is, how he developed his code, and ultimately, you know, what that means for him and his character throughout the season?
Very, very, very good stuff, man. We literally end up like Team Iron Man / Team Cap at the end of this whole thing. It's like, man, what is going on? It's what makes this so good though is because you understand both perspectives so well. I can't be 100% either way. I can't be 100% Mark, nor can I be 100% Cecil. Because once you see what Cecil has gone through and the threats that he has faced, you're like, I kind of get where you're coming from. And when you see Mark and same with him, what he's going through and who he's trying to be as a hero, you understand what Mark is trying to say as well. It's such a complicated thing where you're like, I don't like if you put it's just like, dang, I don't know what to say. I kind of understand both sides, man. And Cecil, you know, he has that line where it's like you can either be the hero or you can save the day or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's real. That's some real spill. Because that's honest sometimes. Like, do you want to do the thing that makes it seem like I'm the best person in the world, or am I going to make the decision that saves you in the end? Cecil's job, he feels like what he has been taught, or he's here to save lives. He's here to save the world. His flashback, he was pissed that 17 people died because he didn't get where he needed to be at in a particular time. Of course, he blamed himself way too hard. There's some therapy that definitely needs to happen there, but there is a little bit of realism to it too. That's like, no, these events transpired. We lost 17 people because of it, and so, man, it's just what an interesting conflict, and to see the Guardians split up in the way they did also makes sense. It's just like, wow, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I don't necessarily see like a civil war. I don't think that's going to happen, but I definitely see like both parties pull up and are like, "Are you supposed to be here? No, you're not supposed to be here." Or like, what are you doing here? And some people got checks and balances, and the other team, maybe it will be a little bit of civil war. But at the end of it, man, it's just such an interesting conflict, and I'm enjoying seeing. I think also how smart Cecil can be, because the measures he kind of takes to protect himself against Mark or any threat for that matter. To be honest, they're kind of Batman like. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's some stuff Batman would have did. Like, Batman's like, Superman, you're getting too close. I got some kryptonite in my pocket, dog. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of Batman.
Back the fuck up! Don't make me do this.
Right. So it's like, all right. So it's kind of it's cool to see, but heartbreaking for us who has been invested in these characters, man, and to see like you really want Cecil and Mark to work out, but it's like moments where you're like, I understand why y'all don't. I don't know. It's just a interesting relationship to have to watch on screen, man. It's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, Cecil is a necessary evil, and I don't believe he's evil as a character, but he's one of those characters that he does what needs to be done that a character like Mark couldn't even do. Like Mark, that's not Mark's position to do things that are ethically questionable. That's what Cecil does, and Cecil's in the background. People don't know Cecil, and that's why he's in the position that he's in, because he can do those things that it's like, damn, if we knew this stuff, if we actually knew what it took to be protective of the earth and to make sure that everybody is safe, we'd all question it, but you don't question it because you have your safety.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And that's what we deal with, like, really as Americans. Like, if we knew actually the real shit that had to be decided on a day-to-day basis, especially by, sitting officials, presidents, governors, whatever the case may be, if we actually knew the decisions that they had to make, we'd be like, our fucking toes would curl. Be like, oh my God, I would never do something like that. But he's a measured person. He's in that position for a reason. And, I can't wait to see how it further shapes up and shapes out over the course of the season. Because, now it's thrown everything into disarray for him because everybody is looking at him sideways. But also, I feel like Cecil always has more knowledge than most other characters. He's more equipped. And so this guy's going to make sure that he can do whatever it needs to be done in order to make sure that things are going to be protected. And so likely people are going to need him, at some point in the season and throughout the story. So I can't wait. I think it's great stuff. And shout out to Walton Goggins. He's just
killing it, man.
Killing it. He's just doing a great job voicing this character and giving him more characterization throughout the season. Before we wrap up, any other characters that you want to point out, any other big events from these first 3 episodes that stood out to you that you want to talk about before we wrap up?
Finding out that Multi-Kate's brother is named Multi-Paul is crazy. Yeah. I did not see that coming. I was like, y'all are so creative over here, man. This is crazy. But I'm also interested. Rex is just becomes more of an interesting character every day. It's like, I like Rex. You're changing. Yeah, it's funny because in the beginning of the show, you're like, oh, this is just the douchebag of the show. He's not gonna have too much to do with anything. But over time, it's funny how even a character like that can have character progression and change in his own way. I think that's very interesting stuff there. And then I'm interested to see what they're gonna do with Adam Eve. I am. I think it's interesting because she's both kind of being brought to the forefront, but also not at the same time. I feel like they're keeping her in this like weird mid position on purpose, and I think she's gonna come out and have to do some really interesting stuff soon. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, especially with them now together, like 2 heroes in a relationship. What does that look like? What does that mean? We haven't really explored a ton of that stuff. Typically
we haven't.
A hero is dating a normal person. They have to juggle that. They have to protect them and all that. But now, like 2 heroes together, I can't wait to see how they can probably
like
subvert expectations.
Not like Batman, Catwoman. That's different. These dudes, people Adam Eve just be making stuff. I'm like, what the heck?
Right,
This
right. There's like real powers at play here, so
yeah.
I'm curious to see how that continues to develop. But we'll ultimately have to see. I'm sure we'll revisit these later episodes as the season progresses. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the first 3 episode premiere of Invincible season 3. If you checked out these brand new episodes, hit us up and let us know what you think about them.